everybody. We're going to give a few people a chance to jump on line here, a few viewers to get here before we start full blast here. But in this webinar, we're going to be interviewing Sandra Kipmata and Kat Fair, and they are both some individuals who have some substantial experience in running quilting businesses. And our hope is during this program that those of you out there who either may be beginning a quilting business, or even who may be just considering putting your toe in the water and jumping into doing a quilting business yourself, you'll be able to get hopefully some encouragement from these two ladies, answers to questions, possibly avoid maybe even some of the pitfalls that they've had. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and we'll start with Sandra, and we'll try to give about a half an hour to each one of you. But I will tell you, Kat, as I'm talking to Sandra, if you just feel like you really want to contribute something or bust in right there, you have that liberty. You can do that. But otherwise, we're just gonna we're gonna do about a half an hour for each one of you, and just kind of pick your brains and just see if we can benefit from some of your experience as well. So Sandra, let's start with you. First of all, where is home for you? Where are you located?
I'm from Michigan, and we live in the farmland of the thumb area, because Michigan's a hand, and everybody holds their hand up and they say, "Where are you from?" And you point to a knuckle or a thumb or a finger. I'm right at the base of the thumb area.
Okay, great. And how long have you been doing this long arm quilting?
25 years now. Got my first machine in 1998. And I've never stopped since, almost 6 days a week till just the last couple of years.
Wow, that's quite impressive. So what made you start out or decide to start long arming in the first place?
I had just shut down a business, and I had a brand new baby, and I was watching Kay Woods on TV, and I saw a quilting cowboy, and I thought, wow, that looks like fun. It's like drawing with thread. So I picked up the phone and I ordered a machine that I saw on the ads at the end of the program. And my husband said, "You did what? You spent every penny we had left in the checking after shutting down our business?" And he said, "What are you going to do? Do you know how to quilt?" And I said, "No, but I'm going to learn." And I had just a lot of ambition and no sense, or I wouldn't have jumped in so quick and done it.
Wow. So when you first started out, were you doing it just for your own personal enjoyment, or were
No,
you
sir.
actually going into business right away?
I was not a quilter. I had sewn my own clothes in the past. I'd made my own clothing. And I thought, well, it can't be much different. I honestly had never made a quilt until I had that machine delivered. I thought, looks like something I would enjoy. I'm going to make money at it. I can work at home with a brand new baby. And I thought that was the best of both worlds, instead of having to go out and work and pay for daycare. But what had happened was, I hadn't thought, where am I going to get customers from? How are they going to come, and how are they going to find me? So I started talking around to neighbors, and I went to quilt shops and asked them, and found out a local quilt guild. When I went to the guild, I met some ladies that had just made a promise of 50 lap quilts to a local children's home, and they were tying them by hand. And I said, "Hey, I got an idea. Let me practice. Let me try and do this and see if I like it." Well, as soon as the word got out that I had made a few quilts, by the time I finished 4 or 5, I started charging. And that I never looked back. I've never paid for advertising, and I do over 1,000 a year still to this day.
Wow. And when you first started out, did you
Yes.
first start out with a gamble machine?
I did not. I had bought a designer quilt because that was the commercial that followed the Quilting Cowboy on that television show on PBS. And it was a 8x8 pan of oil and the machine set on top so it would slosh around. It was a machine on wheels, and the speed control was a dimmer switch that had been wired in and attached to the back of a sewing machine.
Oh,
So I had a big learning curve.
I got
I
you.
had started doing a little more investigating and found out that there were other machines out there that would let me do more than what I wanted to do. And I received a call. I talked to Ken Gamble, and Ken had spoke to me on the phone and said,
Oh, you
honey,
talked to the man himself.
I talked to the man himself, and this is in 1998. And he said, honey, you don't want that machine. You want one of mine. And I said, but I just bought this. I don't have any money left. What do I do? Let me think about it. I hung up the phone. The phone rang 5 minutes later, and it was a woman from another town saying, hi, I heard you're selling your machine. And I said, excuse me? She said, I got your phone number from Ken Gamble because when I called to buy a machine, they were too expensive. So he had given her my phone number, and I delivered it that weekend.
So he spread the word that you were selling that machine before you even knew you were selling it.
He sold it for me before I realized that I wanted to sell it. And that, of course, made me grab a Gamble. And my first one was a Premier, which has a smaller throat. I don't remember what it was. I think it was about 12 to 14 inches. I think it was about 12 inches.
About an 18-inch throat space.
About 18 inches. Okay. And that was wonderful because I was too cheap to buy pantograph panters. I would look at the patterns and say, I can draw that. So I just went to the front of the machine and was doing freehand back in 98 when no one else was. So I learned by looking at a pattern, tracing it myself, because I didn't want to spend the cost to buy the paper rolls. So I was trying to be frugal. And what it was doing was really teaching me a lot of good freehand method, which I still to this day do very easily.
Now, do you still do freehand, or do you do any computerized?
I do. I run 2 machines every day. I have the Classic Plus now for my freehand, and I have the Optimum for my Statler.
Okay, awesome. So now you've been in business for quite some time now. So when you first started, did you know that there would be enough long arm business in your area to support you as a quilter, or how did that evolve?
I had no idea. I didn't know what I was doing. I'd never even made a quilt. I didn't know a quilt guild existed until I walked into the room and saw the women there. It was nothing that was on my radar, nothing that I was even aware of.
You got waylaid, didn't you?
I jumped in with both feet and never looked back.
So as you went on, how did you and how do you obtain or find customers, for your business?
It's all been word of mouth. I've never paid anything for advertising. I did go around to quilt shops and leave my business cards and ask them if they didn't mind, and if they had any store samples they'd like me to try. I would give them a little bit of a reduced rate to put my work into their shops. And it didn't take long. I only had to do maybe 2 or 3 stores and the word got around. In Michigan, we have a lot of snowbirds that go south to Florida and west to Arizona in the winters, of course. Well, when they showed my quilts to their friends in Florida, then I got Florida customers. And when they showed them in Arizona, then I started getting Arizona customers. I still to this day ship quilts all over the world, United States.
Wow. That is awesome. So I was curious about one thing. When you first got your Gamble, were you able to pay for that? Did you have to take out a loan? How did you pay for your first gamble?
Well, I had the design a quilt that I had just paid cash for. So when Ken sold it for me, I had that money. And then I had saved every dollar that I had made on quilting up until that point. So when I went and jumped on the premiere, they were a lot cheaper then than they are now. I just paid cash for it. I didn't have to do any financing. Luckily, I was fine.
Okay. So, and do you do anything other than the quilting? Do you have another job besides your quilting?
I do over 1,000 quilts a year, sir. I don't have time for anything else. No, this has been
So
full time since,
that is your full-time
yes,
occupation.
sir. Yep, since 1998, full time, 6 days a week. When I first started, I was overwhelmed with quilts, and there wasn't anyone in my area. Well, I've since had almost 9 or 10 clients that have bought their own machines and started their own business. And there's plenty of work for everyone. My workload has never slowed down.
Wow. So you say you do, what did you say, 1,000 quilts a year?
Yes, sir.
Wow. And have you, I'm curious if you've done like close to that volume for many years, or has it
Yes.
grown, or
No, it's that's there's only so many hours in the day that I can work. And every morning being self-employed, you get up, you clean your house, you punch in, and I'm in there by 9 o'clock. And at supper time, I come out at 6 o'clock and I go about my business. But when I was first starting, I was so overwhelmed that I would run my Statler, I'd set that up, I'd go in the other room, I'd come back, and I would run it from sun up to sundown and do my freehand at the same time. And then it got to the point where I thought, there's no way I can always get these done every single day. So I started taking Sundays
gotcha.
off.
So so in the beginning you were kind of overwhelmed time wise just to
Yes.
keep up with everything.
Yes.
And so now you've kind of gotten it to where you have your Sundays off, you say, and
Right.
like how many hours a day average would you say you quilt?
I was working 10 to 12 almost every single day. Now about 8 years ago, I was diagnosed and I started doing kidney dialysis 3 days a week, which is a chronic kidney failure. So for 4 hours, I sit in a chair and I have my dialysis treatments. Those days I started slowing down and not sewing as much after a treatment, but I can pin them on, I can measure, I can write receipts and get things ready to go, loaded up for the next morning. And then I'll get up tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. and I'll be in there by 7 working. So I have
Wow.
slowed down a little bit in the last couple of years, but I generally, when I get both machines running, the Statler's running, and I'm
Like,
doing my freehand.
yeah. And so you've been able to adjust your schedule and everything as needed as your lifestyle has changed a bit. So that's
Correct.
good.
Well, and
Now,
the wonderful thing about the income, by being able to adjust to deal with my medical issues, that I can still have an income because I'm still working in my home. So that's a big
now
benefit of working at home.
I was wanting to ask you if you these days do you primarily up a bit?
I'm sorry,
Hey,
you froze up. Could you repeat what you
yeah,
said, please?
yeah, it's freezing up a little bit. I was going to ask you if these days do you primarily do hand guided or computerized or a mixture of both?
I run both machines at the same time. I start my Statler and then I turn around and run my freehand, and I just change bobbins all day long.
And so what would you say your ratio is, like number of quilts that you're able to do on the Statler versus the Plus machine?
Well, of course, depending on size, but as an average, I can do 8 a day if I'm running like 4 small free hands and then 4 bed size on the Statler with basic edge to edge work. I I learned very early that custom and extra work is very time consuming. So when people would say, I've got 40 hours into this quilt, it's beautiful, but that's not where I make my money. I could have 4 done by lunch and you're still working on 2 blocks. So I made my name known for a quick turnaround, and the basic they call bread and butter quilting nowadays is what I, not that I specialize in, but it's what I prefer to do because it's so less time consuming. And you make more money doing average basic quilting. I mean, it's beautiful and it's gorgeous with the Statler now, compared to custom pricing and spending 40 hours a week on one item. I don't have that need in this area where we live. For the economy wise, it would be rare to have someone pay me $1,000 to quilt a quilt, but I can make that doing smaller ones myself. So
Right. So as far as charging, do you charge by the hour or do you charge by the square inch or?
I do by the square inch. That seems to be a fair way because I'm doing table runners, I'm doing bed size, I'm doing wall hangings. So I do by the square inch.
Okay. Well, and for the people watching, what would you say your total charge for like an average queen size quilt would
Um,
be?
Approximately 230, and then I carry batting or they can bring their own. When I first started, you'll get a kick out of this, a king size was $60. Now I get 300. So
Quite a
that's
difference.
the cost of inflation in 25 years.
Yes, yes. So, as you've been doing it for a lot of years,
Yes, sir.
um, you said that you 1,000, um, about how many quilts would you say that you would have done like in your worst year, like in like the past 20 years maybe?
I don't know that I've had a worst year. Um, I
Stayed pretty
I get
steady.
up and work every single day, and I've never had any time that I didn't have. When I get nervous and say, oh, I've only got 6 quilts, I wonder if I'm getting slow and I need to go out and start meeting people again. Because of the pandemic, we stopped going to quilt guilds and you start getting in face to face and groups and meetings. So I thought maybe it's slowing down a little, and then somebody will call and bring me 7, or they'll two or 3 people will stop by with 3 apiece. So I've never been out of work since I started.
I got you. That's awesome. So as far as revenue, would you say that this is somebody that is just starting out and is worried if it's something that they'll be able to genuinely supplement or provide their income? Do you think it, in your opinion, for just the average quilter out there who's starting out, do you think it's something worth pursuing?
Oh, absolutely. I would say don't think it's going to be that easy because it is a job and it is work. Sometimes older senior ladies love to make the quilts, but they don't realize how physical this job is. I think by me walking back and forth and not standing in one place on one machine has helped me, because I'll sit down, I'll do binding, I'll stand up, I'll do freehand, I'll turn around and start the Statler. You have to take care of your body after all those years. You've got to have good posture, good shoes, good fatigue mats. There's a lot of things you got to look out for. As far as, is there an income available? Absolutely. Is there enough work for everyone? Always. because there's new quilters coming up, the new modern quilting movement. There's younger people getting into it. I do a lot of art quilts by younger people. I've never been without. So, and it has supported my family. It has paid for my cars and vacations and homes. So it's definitely an income if you want to treat it as such. If you want to do a hobby, then it's a hobby. But if you go into it with a business idea as a business, you're going to be successful if you treat it that way.
Well, you mentioned the physical demands of quilting. Uh, give me kind of a brief synopsis of Statler versus hand guided and
Oh my
its
goodness. Well,
difficulty.
Statler, yes, absolutely. You're going to set it up and run an edge to edge. So it's basically hands free. Once you set it up, you can step back. And I'm in the same room. I'm watching it over my shoulder on a mirror, The hand guided, I'm only 4'11", so I'm kind of short, so I don't bend over. But I would say if you would get the adjustable table, if you were a taller lady or a gentleman, where I'm only 5 foot, I don't bend over. I'm just kind of straight at the table. So that probably helps my shoulders and back by being short. That's one benefit. But you have to, the carpal tunnel, the back, the knees, the legs, the hips, you always wear good shoes. You always stand up straight. It's a physical job that you're doing. Kind of as if you were a factory worker, you wouldn't stand in one place all day for 10 hours. So I walk from this machine. Every time I fill bobbins, I walk to the end of the room, change my bobbin, walk all the way back. And that way I'm not standing in one place. And that seems to have worked for me all these years.
Excellent. I think that's that stuff that you just shared. I think that's a valuable bit of information for a lot of the people that are watching.
Thank you.
Well, while we still got a few more minutes, Sandra, I wanted to ask you, with your particular business, do you provide or sell supplies like batting, wide back fabrics, or anything like that?
Yes, I keep two kinds of batting. I give them an 80/20 Hobbs or a 6.9 ounce poly. I let them choose what they prefer. I am selling it at a reduced rate because I purchase wholesale and they're happy to buy it from me and it's easier and I don't have to open a lot of packages. So I keep two types of batting. And then I have a selection of fabric, but it's just for my own personal use. And I do keep bleached muslin and natural unbleached if they want that for backing. Other than that, there's plenty of fabric shops around.
Gotcha. So with your shop, with your business, do you offer any other services, binding, piecing, backings, piecing t-shirt quilts, or?
I don't like to talk about that because I have enough work, but I will do it if they throw enough money at
You
me.
don't want the word to get out too much.
Yeah, I don't want to talk too loud about that. I have made t-shirt quilts for people. They've brought me fabric and said, could you just make a quilt? And all the kids are going to get handmade quilts for Christmas, and all they're bringing me is yards of fabric. So I'm pretty much starting from scratch, and they just want two pieces quilted together and the binding done. If a client brings their own binding that's pre-made and they want me to trim and sew it on, I will do it by machine only, but not by hand. Because of course my fingers, I'd be crippled after all these years. But I prefer to make my own binding with their provided fabric because they're not always as accurate as I am. So I do offer a binding service for, the regular clients that I've known for many years. And I know that they have the skills to make it look nice. If not, I'll say, throw a yard of fabric in the bag and I'll make the binding and charge you accordingly.
Gotcha. Let's bringing it back to the people who are hard about this business idea, or who are in the get going what they need to get going. My question for you is, what would you say was the most difficult part of growing your business?
Oh dear. At the beginning, long arm quilting was not very popular because it was so new to this area. And I had a few older ladies that thought, that's not real quilting. You're not doing it by hand. You're cheating. Well, I'm still here. So I'm still working. Um, I've had a little animosity from a couple competitors of people buying a machine and hearing through the grapevine that they had said negative things about my work, hoping to get my customers. And that's really disappointing because I'm very supportive of anybody that wants to start the business. There's more work for anyone. There's no reason to fight over it. But I have had two over the years, not a lot overall, but very disappointed that some of them were very negative. And they came and went, and they're not in the business, and I'm still here. So I just think you have to not let that get you down. If someone says that's not real quilting, you're cheating, or that's not what I've seen on YouTube, or how do you do that? I think you have to have a lot of self-confidence, and I think you have to have a customer service mentality because you're providing a service and you want the customer to be happy, and that's all that matters.
Gotcha. And you know, you mentioned the positive and the negative influences and stuff. Did you have anybody who, like, as you've been in the early years and beyond, who have been like your biggest cheerleaders or support system for you?
I would say my local quilt guild, because every time they have show and tell and ladies walked up and held up their quilts and they're so proud of their work, and they'd say, Sandy Kit quilted this. And before you know, I had two or three other people calling me. And then the next day, I had them bringing me carloads from the next town over because they saw my work. And if you were to do a quilt for a shop hop and do it for a local quilt store, tons of business because they saw your work, and every quilt is different. And then they could pick on who style is more to their liking. So the biggest one would be local quilters, your local quilt guild, and your local fabric shops. And you might have to drive to the next town over because a lot of them have closed in recent years. And that's basically where I got a lot of clients right at the beginning, was all from the quilt guild.
Gotcha. That's excellent. That's something that I think a lot of people are not plugged into and probably would benefit from that.
Oh, it's a wonderful group. It's just unfortunately with the pandemic, so many of them had closed, and ours of after almost 20, over 26 years. I had been there at the very beginning when they had first started, and they have dissolved and are no longer here. And we were up over 200 members at one time. So quilt guilds are changing and they are getting smaller. But then we also have the technology of YouTube to help us out. And we have Facebook for advertising. I pop up pictures of quilts just because they're gorgeous. And a lot of people contact me and say, how much do you charge and where are you located? So if one door opens, when another door closes, you know the saying.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, we got just a couple of minutes left. Let me ask you, what is one thing that you wish that someone would have told you when you first started out with this journey that you're on?
You can't do them all in one day. You just can't work hard enough. There's not enough time in the day to do what you do.
Well, so you say it was 25 years ago that you
Yes, sir.
started this quilting journey. What is a piece of advice that you could give to somebody who wants to experience the stuff that you've talked about today? And do you still think it's possible in this post-pandemic 2023 year?
I do, because I think we can use social media to make contacts when we can't make them in person. And now with that cell phone everywhere, you can snap a picture and send it and text it and show people your work. That's an exciting way that you don't have to carry around quilts. You can use the technology to show your work on your phone. Go to a fabric store. You might be looking at a lady buying fabric to make a quilt and say, hey, look what I just made. You know, the more you put yourself out there and don't be afraid of rejection, and the more work that you do, the better you get. Because no one starts out, you know, doing wonderful work. You look at your piecing, you look at your quilting, everybody improves. And if you don't improve, you should do something different.
Gotcha. Well, Sandra, thank you very much for sharing that. Very inspiring stuff, very informative also.
Thank you.
And if you're able to hang with us, we're gonna talk to Cat Fair, not Cat Fur.
Oh,
Cat, um, and I'm gonna Sandra, I'll tell you the same thing. If you hear something that we're talking about and you just feel compelled to contribute something, you're welcome to do that. But
Thank you.
Kat, I want to kind of start out with you the same type of thing, you know, a little bit about your journey and where you've come from. Starting out, where is home for you? Where are you located?
sure. I live in Central Oregon, specifically Terrebonne. I'm about an hour away from Sisters. Most people know the big Sisters Outdoor Quilt Show. So that's where I'm at. My business is pretty much opposite of Sandra's this whole time. It's kind of funny.
So, so how long have you been involved with long arm quilting?
10 years.
I'm sorry, say that again.
About 10 years for long
Okay.
arm quilting.
Sometimes the sound on here is not that great.
Yeah, sorry.
So, so what was it that pulled you into this long arm world?
So I've always loved quilting, even back when I just had my domestic machine. Like piecing was just something I got done so I could do the fun part of quilting. And I would go to all these quilt shows. The time I lived in Wisconsin, and there was a ton of shows in Chicago. We'd go to every single one. And I just kept seeing these long arm machines over and over again. And I was like, you know what? This is what I need. This is how I'm going to get that pattern that I've been trying to do on the domestic, that I can't make it work. And I won't have to crawl on the floor anymore to baste the layers together. I was killing my knees.
So, and when you first started out, were you just for your personal self, or did you actually start out with business?
Oh no, I bought the machine with the intent of adding that onto my business, because I also do some embroidery stuff. And I was begging my husband for years, please, please, please let me buy a long arm. And the answer was always no, we can't afford it. No, we can't afford it. And then when we moved from Wisconsin here to Oregon, I was just really blessed that 2 doors down, my neighbor, friend, and mentor, she turned into, her name was Donna. And Donna had a gamble. And Donna taught me everything I knew. And when Donna was moving away, she slowly passed her clients along to me, because she was moving in a whole different part of the state. And that just is how I got started.
So it helped you when you started out by having a kind of a mentor.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would
So,
spend hours in her studio, and she would show me how she was doing business tips, how she set things up, how she charged, her intake forms, all the things. And plus, she would let me use her gamble at the end of the night. Like if she had finished a quilt, I could put one on and play while she was having dinner. She was amazing.
wow, that's awesome. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the mentoring that you got from her is
Mm-hmm.
the people that are watching this podcast, they're getting like a little concentrated drop of that, through this podcast, through you guys. And so we really appreciate you being willing to offer your time to to give some of your wisdom to the people who are trying to follow the path that you are. So, did you start out with a gamble yourself
Yes,
when
I
you're
did.
quilting?
I purchased a retrofit, and since then I've upgraded it to an Ascend.
Okay. And why did you choose to start out with a gamel?
Okay, so kind of a longer story, but going to all of those quilt shows, even though I knew the answer was no at first, I was looking at them and really seeing like, how did each one work? What were the parts like? Then when we moved here to Oregon, and I obviously saw Donna's gamel, and I was very impressed. And she would just talk about how amazing the company is and how great the machine is, et cetera, and how it was the best of the best. And then I started going to shows out here once my husband was like, okay, fine, you're learning from Donna, you can buy a machine. So Donna and I went to a whole bunch of different shows, and I really started looking at the parts. And what really got me was that the tracks and the motors of the gamel, it's heavy duty materials, where some of the other machines were like little plastic teeth. And I looked at that and I went, I'm gonna break those little teeth like in 2 seconds. There's no way. I'm so klutzy. No, no, no. And plus, I had been learning on hers. And so when I told my husband I was ready, he agreed. He's like, no, you just got to get the gamel. Like, if you're doing this, you're doing this right. You're getting the gamel, you're getting the 14-foot frame. And that's what we did.
And you started out hand guided or computerized?
Oh, computerized. Computerized, definitely. That's what she had taught me. And I slowly learned hand guiding over the years.
Okay. So you've been able over the years to add a little bit of hand guided to your repertoire.
Oh, yes. Which leads me to I do about 50-50. Unlike Sandra, most of my quilting is custom quilting. And so I do a lot less quilts than she does, a lot less revenue than she does for the same reason. But I've become known in my area as one of the few people that do custom quilts. So I tend to get a lot of those.
Okay. So you prefer to do custom quilting, would you say?
I know the money isn't there, but it's just so filling. Like, it's just fun, and I just love every aspect of it. And like today, I had a client come in to pick one up and brought me 5 more. And every one she opened, like immediately in my head, I went, okay, that needs to be custom. This is going to be this. This is going to be that. That's going to be that. Da 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 da. And there was one of all 5 that I went, that one should be edge to edge. And she said, yep, exactly. So I don't know, just that's where my mind goes.
Okay. So you get a lot of satisfaction out of doing that.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
is quilting your full-time job, or do you do anything
No, it's
else?
not.
Okay.
I do also some embroidery stuff and some teaching as well.
So would you say you do it with your, you focus on a lot of the custom work. Do you do it more for the satisfaction or more for the money?
Hmm. Well, that's a tough one because I love doing it. I do like doing edge to edge, but there's just something about dropping the belts and going, Statler does some parts, I do some parts. I've been slowly raising my prices so I can make more money doing that. So that's like at the end of the
So
day,
you
it
like
is
the
a
money a
business.
little bit too.
I do really like the money. Yeah. The money's good.
Okay, and that's good because with you two guys, we're getting a couple of different angles,
Right.
of your business,
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, let's go back to the business part of it.
Okay.
When you first started,
Mm-hmm.
did you did you know that there was enough long arm business available in your area, or
Yes. Like I
no
said,
idea?
since I'm really close to the Sisters Quilt Show, I figured there would be a lot of quilters. Now, I had just moved to this area, and my mentor had said to me, I have like 14 quilts in my queue, and I got to get that down. And I remember thinking, oh, I can't wait to the day I have 14 quilts in my queue. Yeah, it's never been less than that, ever.
Gotcha. See, you
There's
stay busy.
so
You
much
always
work.
have
Yeah,
plenty to do. So, and so you don't have any problem finding customers,
not at
and you
all.
stay. So
It's
when you
like
first
Sandra said, oh, sorry.
what's that? Say that again. I'm
I was gonna
sorry.
say, like Sandra said, it is so much of it is word of mouth. And they go back to their guild and they hold up that quilt and they go, oh my gosh, someone does custom quilting in this area. And then they call me.
So, and do you do any actual advertising?
Not
No?
really. No, I mean, I like Sandra, I'll put pictures up on Facebook, things like that. At first I had my business card in shops, but I don't, there's very few. A lot of them have closed. Um, and I don't need to do any advertising because I've become known in the area as that person. I've done a couple
Right.
like craft fair shows too, where I handed out my business card. In the beginning, I would do that.
Okay. So, somebody that maybe doesn't even have their gamel yet,
Mhm.
it's for their benefit that I asked this question. How did you come up with the funds to buy your machine, or did you have to pay it off, tell us about that a little bit.
I financed it. So that's why I bought a retrofit. In fact, I had met Andrew at a couple of shows before I even owned a Gamel, and he answered all my questions. And every time Donna and I went to another show, there he was. And he kept answering my questions. And I was like, this guy is just so nice. He doesn't even know me. And so when it came time, I just called him right up. And he walked me through the different versions and the pricing and had told me they were retrofits that worked for my budget. So I financed it out. Took about 5 years ish to pay it off, I think.
Okay.
But again, I was
So,
working part time. So
right. So, nowadays, how many hours a week would you say you spend doing quilting, strictly quilting?
gosh, not a lot. Not as many as I would like. Probably about half of the day. But I will say, going back to that financing thing, when I got my Ascend upgrade, I paid off that upgrade in like 6 months, maybe less. So it's hard for me to pinpoint how many hours a day I quote because a little bit of ADD here and I bounce around from this to that. Like, okay, let's work on this section. Okay, now let's go do some laundry. Now let's go back and work on this section and let's go do some embroidery. I bounce a lot. Let's go play with the dogs. Let's work on these borders. So,
Gotcha. So now you said you say you focus primarily on custom quilting.
yeah.
And do you do some like edge to edge, and
Mhm.
or do you
Oh, yeah.
what would you say is the ratio of how much you do?
Yeah, I do 90% custom, 10% edge to edge.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so two big differences there. Okay.
Yes, huge difference.
But I tell you, this is great. It's great to have the both of you guys on here because you both have you're both coming from a totally different angle, and I think we're gonna be able to benefit a lot of people that are watching this right now. Um, so charging customers, do you charge by the hour or by the square inch?
By the square inch. It would not be fair for me to charge by the hour since I bounce around back and forth. That
A
would
lot
be
more time
terrible.
consuming to do the stuff that you do,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I charge a higher rate per square inch for the customs, but it's definitely per square inch and not per hour.
So what would you say an average queen would cost? Average.
That is hard. Most of the custom quilts are smaller. So like I
Oh,
just sent a
oh,
custom
I
quilt
got you.
out the door today that was like maybe full size or a little smaller, and that was about $300.
Okay,
So a lot of people, if they're doing big bed quilts, don't want custom quilting because it can be 400 or 500 bucks easily at the lower end of custom. So
got
because
you.
the pricing depends on how dense and what they want and how many times I have to change the thread and do I have to trim it out or fill it out or custom make a shape to fit. So
Gotcha. Um, as far as volume wise, how many quilts would you say you do during a year?
that I can't answer because I'm very bad at keeping track.
It's that
My
ADD
brain
again,
doesn't
isn't it?
go that way. It just goes, oh, what can I quote next? And I don't, yeah, sorry, I can't answer that. I wish I could. And
I
I could
got that's
convince my
okay.
husband I need like 5 more machines, but no, sorry.
I definitely understand. So, all right. So, Kat, at your business,
Yep.
do you like provide or sell supplies? Batting or anything
The
like
the only thing that I sell is batting. Like Sandra, I buy it wholesale, but I charge retail prices for it because that's where I make a good chunk of money. I
Okay.
also charge a thread charge as well, but I do not offer binding services or any of those other things. In the beginning, I offered that I would make embroidery labels, quilt labels, and I don't do that anymore either. It's just too time consuming.
Gotcha. So, and do you do anything else, like binding or piecing or anything
No.
like that?
I've done one t-shirt quilt that I pieced like, from scratch for a good friend of mine, like a commission quilt. But I don't announce that I offer that because it's so time consuming, and I'd rather spend my time quilting. Like I said earlier, quilting is my jam. Like I piece just to get to the part where I can quilt. So I don't really offer that if I can avoid it.
Yeah, I'm seeing this theme with you that you get a lot of enjoyment out of this stuff, don't you?
Yes, I just want to doodle and play all day long. It's so great.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I'm going to ask you one of the same questions that I asked Sandra about when you're growing a business, what would you say would be one of the hardest parts about doing a business and
For
growing?
me, so
Yeah.
for me, it's staying on track. I just, unlike Sandra, I can't do the okay strict from boom to boom. Like I bounce
Don't tell me
around,
it's
like
that
I said.
ADD again, isn't it?
It is like I bounce around. So when I can really say to myself, okay, you're going to be in that studio by 10 a.m. and you're going to quilt until 2, lunch break, then quilt until my husband gets home. Like those are the days that I get a lot done because I've set myself a schedule and I stick to it. I don't stop to do laundry or walk the dogs, etc. So for me, that's the hardest part is really sticking to it and treating it like it is a business and not just cat's fun doodling time.
So focus is a prime
Focus.
commodity with you.
Yes. That's a
Yeah,
good way to wrap it up, Bobby. Yes, focus.
I got you. Well, tell me, have you had any people who were um uh big support? You mentioned the sisters. Is there any other areas of your life or family members or anything that have been like cheerleaders support for you?
Oh, for sure. So definitely my mentor, Donna, even though she has moved away, she'll still comment on my Facebook posts and tell me how proud of me she is. Um, and then my customers, because they will go to the guild and they will hold it up and they will say, I showed everyone your quilt and everyone loved it. And they will really promote me. So I think those are my biggest ones, aside from family and friends that are like, yeah, you can do it.
I was thinking about this a while ago, like at a guild and stuff. Do you do you think you ever go there thinking that you have a lot of competition there and like you need to
Hmm.
be on guard?
Not really, because there's definitely so many quilts, like a lot of quilts, enough quilts to go around to everybody. I like
That's
when I
like
can go
Sandra
to
was
which,
saying. There's plenty to
yeah,
go around.
I,
Yeah.
so many. And when I go, I like to look at it and be like, huh, that's interesting. I don't know if I would have thought to do that. And I really look at it as inspiration. And if I have show and tell, I hope that they're inspired by my work as well.
Gotcha. So let me ask you, when you first started, like when you're just first getting started, and I know you kind of had some the embroidery and stuff going on before, but starting your business, going into the business world in general, is there something that you wish that somebody would have told you when you had first started out,
Hmm. That is a good
or
question.
something you know now that you wish you would have
Right.
known then?
Uh, I was really fortunate that my mentor, she told me to focus. I just didn't focus, you know. That's a good question. I don't think I have a good
So you
answer for
had a
that,
mentor.
unfortunately. I had a mentor,
Uh,
right? She shared everything with me. And I want to share that back because like I was just so lucky to happen to move in 2 doors down from her, not knowing that she was there, not knowing that she was a quilter, not knowing that she was a long arm quilter. Like, it was all just meant to be. So she gave me so much advice. Like, literally, I spent hours just in her studio every day.
So you had a rock star mentor
I did. So
that
I guess
it probably helped you avoid a lot of that question that I was asking, where you
shared
didn't
her
have things
mistakes
that
with
you had to
me.
avoid.
So I guess the answer would be just to learn as much as you can. Ask questions from like everybody. There's no stupid question. Just ask and absorb as much as you can.
Now let me ask you again. I'm all curious about Donna now, your mentor. So did you know her beforehand, or was it a chance? You say she just lived by you, or
Nope.
what? Tell
Yeah.
me,
So we
how did
moved
you
from
get this awesome mentor? That's what I want to know.
sheer luck, Bobby, sheer luck. We moved from Wisconsin to Oregon. And my husband came out first while I was finishing closing up, and I worked in corporate advertising, and I was just doing quilting for myself and my domestic. And so he was here. We had, signed for the paperwork for the house, and he had come here to the new house to do whatever, and just happened to meet the neighbors 2 doors down. And he called me and he said, "You're not going to believe this. The lady 2 doors down is a long arm quilter." And my very first thought was, ah, dang it. No, I can't do that. I really wanted to do that when we moved. How am I
I
going
thought
to
I
do
was a
that? It's like one
competitor.
2 doors down. And I was so wrong. I had no idea the amount of quilts that are out there, or how amazing she was going to be, and how it was going to just change my whole world. I really lucked out. Somebody was watching out for me, and put me on that path. They knew it. That's where I was supposed to go.
Awesome. You were very blessed
I
with
was,
Donna.
yes, I still am.
Well, something. One thing I've heard from both of you girls is, and it's something that I have thought about, especially when I first started working at Gamble. Say, is there enough of this to go around? And it sounds like from the testimony of both of you girls that that there is tons of demand for quilting out there. Would you agree with that, Sandra?
Absolutely. It's exciting that the industry has come so large and that it's gotten so popular again with the modern quilting movement and with young people sewing, and they're taking thrifting of fabric and repurposing it to recycle and reuse. I think it's a whole new generation coming up. It's exciting to get younger people involved, and because it's not a lost art, because it's continuing to grow.
Yeah, and it seems like the median age of quilters is a little bit higher than a lot of other businesses. What do y'all think? What would you say to somebody that's a younger person? Do you think this would be something that would be good to get into?
Yes. In fact, I have a client who is wanting to get into it, and I keep telling her, just do it. All you got to do is just buy it and then practice, 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 practice. Learn everything you can. Like, whether you want to do it for business or just for yourself, it's so fulfilling.
And you still think that this in 2023
Mm-hmm.
that long arm quilting is a very viable profession?
Yes. Have you been to the Sisters Outdoor Quilt Show? You've seen like gazillions of quilts. But additionally, there's a lot of programs out there now that are specifically teaching children how to sew. And so my hope is that those programs continue to grow, and 4-H continues to grow, and those people just keep on sewing.
Well, that is awesome. Well, ladies, it has been great talking with both of you. I don't want to leave you without I don't know if do either of you have anything that I didn't ask you about that you feel like you need to communicate to people out there before we go, or do you feel
Just,
like
you can do it.
Be
You can do it.
careful.
Have fun.
Be careful what you wish for.
No, have fun. It's so great. Try it. You're gonna love it.
Don't worry
Well,
about
that's
not having
awesome.
work. It'll come.
Oh yes, it will.
Well, that's great. I tell you, you guys have been amazing. I mean, you guys have been not only inspiring, but also very, very informative, both of you. I thank you guys so much. And I just want you to know that all the stuff that you've shared with us today, you're helping to plant seed for people out there, you know, that you know how it is. There's insecurity where can I really do this? But you guys are heroes, and thank you so much for joining us. And we just really appreciate your presence with us today. So we're
Thanks,
gonna
Bobby.
say
Thank you.
goodbye, and there's one more time. This is Sandra Kipmata. I said that right.
You did, sir. Thank you.
And Kat Fair.
Yes. Thank you.
Even though it doesn't look like it's spelled fair.
Right.
But you guys, thank you so much. And we appreciate you so much. And I'm sure we'll be seeing more of you as time goes on.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye-bye.
Good evening.